Hello. Hi. Hi, welcome everyone. I've lost count, but I think this is the fourth or the fifth episode of Rosé with Rups, which is just a silly name for my very chatty, very informal podcast. I have someone special today because I've only before this spoken to doctors. I have someone who is doctor adjacent, and I think that makes him more interesting than a doctor, to be honest. So I'm gonna let Richard introduce himself and we'll go from there.
Yep. So hello and thank you for having me. Um, I guess for yourself and for anyone who's watching, my name is Richard Powazynski, and I'm the founder of the Doctorpreneur Network, and that is a supportive community for doctors who are looking to embrace entrepreneurship, and whether that be starting something themselves or if they've already started and getting them to a point where they can start to grow and scale their business. So anyone interested in entrepreneurship who is a doctor, the network is for you.
Amazing. Um, so I personally have done a lot of weird and wonderful things outside of medicine just because I wanted to. I think
Yeah.
it was never about the side hustle mentality or the entrepreneurial mentality. It was
Yeah.
just I wanted to try different things. And one of the things I struggled with was finding a network, finding someone to help. And that's why I found the Doctorpreneur platform really interesting. So if you could tell me a little bit more
Mhm.
about how it started and your journey
Yep.
in setting it up.
So it kind of goes back to around this time last year. So my husband is the one who is the doctor. So that's how I'm doctor adjacent. And being in that world, I have a lot of friends and family who are doctors, and I hear the struggles and the challenges of the profession, and kind of the other things that people want to explore outside of that, a bit like what you said as well. And I myself have been an entrepreneur for 10, 12 years. I've done all sorts of businesses, some successes, some failures, all sorts of different things. I've tried everything. And what had happened was my husband got to the point where he had finished his specialty and got certified here because we're based in Germany, and got certified here and said, what comes next? How do I keep moving up? And that could have been, a PhD or another specialty, but one of the ideas was to start his business. And I said, well, I myself are in like a prime position to support you through that because I have all of this experience. And one of the things that happened a little bit towards the end of 2023 was I actually went through my own burnout. And at that point, I had to really stop and reflect and spend a bit of time really figuring out what I was doing or how I was helping people, and what I wanted to achieve myself, and try and kind of find a little bit more clarity around like my purpose and things like this. So when we got this idea of building this business, I just thought like I'm available and I can help. And then I started to really see where my strengths lied, because I was able to provide that support and help him kind of build his business, and avoid a lot of the things that I've done in the past. So it was kind of like an accelerated process. And off the back of that, I then got referred to another doctor who he had been 6 months into his doctorpreneur journey, was struggling a little bit with what he was offering and trying to get clients. And he bravely reached out and said, I need help. Can you help me? And I said, I'm already doing that for my husband. So I'll do my best. I'm not professing to be an expert in anything, but I have my experience that I'm willing to try. And, we started to change his business and turn it around, and get it starting to move forward again, and get him kind of motivated again and excited. And that went on to being referred to another doctor, had another doctor and another doctor. So that was kind of how most of last year progressed, was me working one-on-one with doctors to really kind of get them established with their businesses and get them moving forward. And then at the end of the year, I was having a lot of discussions with them and a lot of discussions with either potential clients or even just doctors, like yourself, who were just interested and open to talking. And they kept saying the same thing, like, especially for people wanting to explore entrepreneurship, there's no support, there's not much out there, and they don't know where to turn, and it's not something they're particularly taught in the medicine world of how to own a business, build a business. So that's kind of where I was like, why am I clients and the people that I'm talking to not connecting? Like there's an opportunity here, and that's kind of what happened. We at the end of last year got together on a call, and people just love being in the same space and just being with people who just get it. They get the journey, they get the frustrations, they get the struggles, but they left that conversation feeling so inspired and so motivated. So we did it again in December. And then towards the end of December, we said, like, let's think about opening this up to more doctorpreneurs, because you don't then necessarily need to work with me directly, but you can, be part of this network. And we launched that 3 weeks ago, a little over 3 weeks, and the feedback's been amazing. The interest has been amazing. We've had new members join the network, and it's all just around this idea of providing a platform, a safe space, a community of fellow doctors who get what you're going through. They have the same dream, the same goal of setting something up for themselves across all different niches, industries, services, but the goal's the same. And they want to support each other. So that's kind of where we're at. And that makes me very happy, because I'm able to help doctors on an even bigger scale than on a one-to-one. So still early days, but I'm very excited for kind of where everything is heading.
No, I love that. So there were a couple of things that you said that really stood out to me, where you were like, you want to make a space where
yeah,
people understand each other, because
yeah,
that's essentially what I am doing at the moment with my mentoring. Because for us, for juniors, we have a lot of stupid questions, little things you want to ask, and it's helpful to have a non-judgmental voice being like, you're not an idiot, you're just new to the system. And I think especially outside of medicine, because in med school they only teach you medicine. So
yeah,
things like, I don't know how to do my finances, I don't know basic life skills. And it would have been nice if in my journey to setting something, just starting something, if I had a voice to be like, hey, maybe try a different approach, or maybe you could do something slightly differently, or maybe just the motivation that whatever you're doing it well.
yeah,
So I think that that support of having someone just guiding you from their own experiences even can be quite reassuring. And that sort of community in itself can be quite nice to have someone to lean on. So now that I know a little bit about how you've set it up,
hmm
are there things that you learned along the way, positives, negatives, anything that you'd like to share?
In terms of working with doctors specifically, is that
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
mean? Yeah. So one of the things I think surprised me at first was a little bit what you described is this mindset shift from medicine to entrepreneurship. One of the things that a lot of the doctors struggle with at the beginning, especially with the ones who are very early stage of wanting to start something but don't know how to start, or they've gotten a few months into the journey and it kind of has gotten a bit overwhelming with all the little nuances that you need to think about or prepare or organize, was this mindset shift of, I don't have the skills to be an entrepreneur. I don't know anything about entrepreneurship. I don't know, I have no knowledge. And one of the things that I find I'm doing at the very beginning of that stage is helping with that mindset shift is that doctors have so many transferable skills, such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and so much experience talking to people and being exposed to people. And in business, that's where the business is. It's in those relationships. It's in those client relationships. You know, your customers. It's with your network. It's with your mentors and stuff. But it's all to do with people. So a lot of the time in the beginning, I've been surprised with how much mindset work we have to do first to kind of clear some of those blockages and be like, actually, what you have is such a wealth of knowledge and experience. This can all be applied to entrepreneurship. We just need to figure out how. Like, and it's just a reframe, but at least by going through this process, they start to see things differently about entrepreneurship, and it's less of like less fear based and more like, okay, I've got this. I just have to trust myself. And then, like you said, just having a group of people who can support you and acknowledge what you're doing and be like, just keep going. Or like you say, a small question like, oh, how do I set up this little task? And someone can jump in and say, hey, just read this, or I watched this earlier, have a look. It's really simple, but there's no fear of asking, there's no fear of reaching out for help. So yeah, I think that is one of the things that surprised me the most since working with doctors is how much mindset shifting we have to do first. So that's why I'm very happy to always talk about it on like podcasts and YouTube videos and things like this. So just anytime I get a chance to speak, because it's like it's okay to think like that, but I'm here to tell you, you have so much there that we can work with. Like, let's embrace it.
No, oh my God, that's like, it's such a relevant point because I try to do the same. When in my experience, when I work with international graduates, they think they're less than people who have studied here. And I don't think they're any lesser or any better. It's just a different skill set that they
Yeah,
bring. And it's just understanding how to utilize your strengths, how to utilize your capabilities. And I think in any community, that level of support should be there. And that level of, that motivation to be like, no, it's okay. You don't have to know everything about
yeah,
everything, but you will learn as you go along, and that's fine. Um, one of the things that I tend, and it's even on my website, is that there's the office where Michael Scott says a thing where he's like quoting another person who says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I
yeah,
think that is a mindset that everyone needs to have, not just medics, but anyone who's planning to do anything new, anything interesting, starting from scratch. Because if you don't try, you're never going to know. And it shouldn't be the fear of failure stopping you from at least doing your very best. So that's again something I like to instill in anybody who I'm mentoring and anybody who asks me a question as well. I mean, we're so self-deprecating, but we have, as you said, a wonderful transferable skill set.
yeah.
Okay.
That fear, that sorry,
Yeah.
that fear of failure is a big one. Like you say, not just for doctors, but for anyone. Um, so it's a big one you have to overcome. But one of the things that I will always tell people is, especially going into entrepreneurship, is you have to fail fast and fail forward. That's all you can do. Um, because the quicker you fail at something, the quicker you get closer to success, whatever that looks like in your business or in your journey.
I
So
love the phrase fail forward. I've never heard
yeah,
that before.
yeah,
That's great. I'm going to use that in my essay.
yeah,
No, but I definitely agree. I think a lot of the fear of failure comes from doctors being overachievers. We are such type A personalities. We're not used to having setbacks because we go from one highly academic setting to another. and then now starting something we don't know, and then
Mm.
facing failure, and having that resilience, is something we need to learn and we need to embrace.
Do you think that
Um,
also, sorry, a question for you, do you
yeah,
think that
yeah,
also plays into why doctors find it difficult to reach out and ask for help? Do you think that
yeah.
that's what that is?
I think where I come from, in particular, asking for help is considered a taboo,
Mm.
especially even in a clinical setting, and especially outside of a clinical setting. So for people from my part of the world, it's you're expected to know everything, and if you don't know something, how dare you not know it?
Yeah,
So that's why when they see me, when they see somebody with the same skin color who's telling them, no, it's okay to ask for help. No, it's okay to like reach out. No, it's okay to, even if it's a stupid question, it's okay to ask. Um, I think that's just my perspective. But I think
yeah,
in a broader sense, the medical community isn't very accepting of mistakes and asking for help. Um, and there's different reasons for it, but yeah, I can only talk about where I come from and the things I've seen. So yeah,
yeah,
but it's a very interesting question. Thank you.
yeah. It's one of the things that I try to get people when I'm speaking to them, because sometimes they struggle with this, is to try not to think of it as asking for help in the literal sense of, um, you know, I need help. That little phrase that I need help is 3 words. I think people are paralyzed by that. But instead of saying that, you can do things like, oh, would you mind like taking a look at this? Or I'd love your opinion on this piece of work that I'm doing, or in the entrepreneurial world, like I've written this copy for my website. Would you mind, casting your eyes over it? It changes your vision of, or like your perception of what asking for help is, because it's essentially what you're doing, or
Yeah.
reaching out to your support network, or reaching out to your community and saying, hey, has anyone experienced a website crashing, and how I might be able to fix that? You're asking for help. But I think most people, when they think, oh, I need to ask someone for help, they feel they have to physically, like actively say, I need help. Can you do this? And I think that is where a lot of people struggle with taking that action. But a little reframe, game changer.
No, that's very interesting. I've never
Yeah.
actually thought about it that way. And it's also about like when you said, "Oh, can you read this for me?" Um, when people come in and they ask me, "Can you read my application? Can you review my CV?" they it's important to ask, even if you're going to get a no. 9 times out of 10 you might get rejected, you're going to get said no to, but that one time somebody
Mm.
might throw you a bone and be like, yeah, why not, I've got 10 minutes, I'm feeling generous, I'll
Yeah.
read your application. And that's all it takes. That one person saying, yeah, sure, I'll help you, can be the game changer. So if you never ask, you'll never know.
Yeah. 100% agree.
It's only because I have received so many rejections and so many things that I've done where I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I might as well apply for it. But yeah, I think this
But
mindset takes time to develop.
but there's a similar concept with in sales, because one of the things that a lot of doctors getting into entrepreneurship struggle with is that first step of getting sales. Getting their first clients, getting someone to buy whatever it is that they're offering. Um, and there's this concept of like chasing the nose. So if you chase the nose, as you're going through this process of reaching out to people, you're asking people if they're interested in what you're offering. Quicker you can get to a no is the quicker you can get to a yes. So
Mhm.
so this idea of chasing the nose means that it's going to free you up to be able to chase the yeses. So a prime example is, let's just say you start talking with a potential prospect. They say, yes, I'm interested. You, I don't know, get on a call. You get off the call. You send them a summary or an update. Then you send them a proposal. So it's a very linear process. But some people then just kind of stop when, for example, the person doesn't respond to the email after a few days. Like, oh, well, they haven't responded, they're not interested. And I'll say to them like, well, remember, we need to chase the no, because
Mm-hmm.
until we get the no, this is like an open dialogue, and we like it just adds to our burden. This, okay, this is still open. This needs to be pursued. So the quicker you chase the no, either you're going to get the yes, or you're going to get a no. And if you do get the no, you can then move on to find somebody who is more suitable to give you a yes. So yeah, chasing the no is kind of a little concept that I think is super useful to keep in mind in business.
I think in business and when you're starting a new job, so a lot of clinicians don't understand how HR works.
Mm,
So they don't understand that HR in general takes a while to respond. And they, at least from what I've seen in from people coming from my part of the world, we don't understand that HR looks at like the whole hospital. They're looking at like thousands of employees. So it takes them a little bit of time to get back to you. And it's your onus to chase a response. But
yeah.
that doesn't mean you still have to respect certain boundaries. That doesn't mean that you're going to flood their inbox with 10 emails. They're going to get annoyed, and you don't
Yeah.
want that. And I think that same respect for someone's time has to be there when you're reaching out to anybody for help, where you're going to send an email or you're going to send a message or you're going to approach them. And if they don't have the time, you might try again. But
Yeah.
then, as you said, then you move on and you respect those boundaries. So it's about finding a balance, I think, between
Yeah.
chasing and also being respectful,
Yeah.
because we can be quite persistent as well. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you can do it in a tactile way, and you can do it in a
Yeah.
in a way that's intentional and is respectful. But yeah, you really want to, focus on getting to that point, and either you get the yes, like I say, or you move on to find the next thing, or as you experience, you start applying for the next job, or whatever the case may be.
No, but that's very insightful. Coming back to the network and the platform,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about networking for doctors in general, and maybe a little bit about the tools that are available, say like LinkedIn?
So it's again, networking for anybody, not just doctors, but just networking in general, it's a must. We're people, we are part of communities in the wider sense of things, whether it's our families, whether it's where we live, where we currently work. Um, you know, just humans in general, it's just human nature to connect with other people. And I think networking is just another form of that. The difference is that it's formed around a different goal. So instead of it being a community of parents who have kids, or a community like your family community where the goals are different, it's just another extension of that. And you think about the value you get from having that community. So having your family around you, or having a community of parents, taking the kids to school, whatever that looks like. It's the same in a business profession, and it's the same with this idea of networking. And I think um, by keeping that in mind, there's so much value that you can gain from having a network. And whether that's getting the support that you need when you're struggling with something, whether that's making new friends, new acquaintances, this kind of thing, and expanding kind of your worldview, because you're able to now kind of network with people all around the world with the way that things are now digitally. But as well, the network can open doors for you, and I think this is where, if you are really wanting to, I don't know, expand your reach or build a business, or you want to grow your personal brand, or you want a new job opportunity, or you want to explore a new career direction, like whatever it is, if you start to network, these ideas of knocking on doors, they'll eventually start to open. And this whole old analogy of, I know a person who knows a person who knows a person, excuse me, that always is something that plays out, and that happens through networking. I might not know someone who can help you, for example, create YouTube videos, but I know someone who's good at lighting. I could reach out to him and I can connect you to, and suddenly you've got somebody who's able to help that. So there's a lot of power in it, and there's a lot of value in it. But you have to go into it knowing that it's not just one directional. You've got to give as well, in order to receive. But in terms of like a platform like LinkedIn, I think it's a great platform for doctors because you are still within that professional zone, because it's more of a professional based platform. It just keeps growing. I think last year they had their 1 billion users, so it is growing. And I think just as a platform for growing your network, it's easier because you can quite easily highlight who it is that you're trying to form a network with. So a lot of times doctors will have doctor in their title or in their headline or in their about section, and you can very quickly be like, oh, this is someone who's in the right niche or the right industry, or is it in the right specialty, or it's the same level of doctor as me. I think it's a little bit easier than maybe trying to find them on Instagram or TikTok or something like this. So excuse me. So there's a lot of value in networking, and I think everyone should be part of some form of a network, whether it's joining one or whether it's creating their own around a specialist topic. But yeah, and everyone's kind of post-pandemic world. Everyone wants to be less alone and less isolated and less lonely, and I think that really just is an outcome of that. And I think I find that myself with having the Doctorpreneur Network is, as much as there's the support element and there's the opportunities and there's the networking side, it's just a community where doctors who are going through this business journey, this entrepreneurial journey, and feeling isolated and feeling kind of lonely are now feeling that less, because we have our group chat, we have our group calls. You can tap into me at any point, whether it's via a message, whether it's jumping on a quick call, whether it's booking a full strategy session, and feeling like you're part of a community and feeling a little bit less alone going through this process. So a lot of value for sure.
I love what you said about wanting to feel a little less lonely after the pandemic, because medicine is a very isolating career. It's hard to explain to somebody who's not in healthcare the things that we experience, good and bad. And it's quite boring. I think for for non-medics, listening to medical jargon can be quite boring and emotionally taxing as well. So to have someone in who relates is quite nice, where you're like,
Yeah,
oh, we're suffering, but at least we're suffering together.
yeah,
uh, so yeah, I think medicine is a very isolating career. And about networking, so when I try to simplify it, networking I think is a very fancy word which is used
yeah,
in a corporate setting. But
yeah.
I try to think of it as making friends or making connections. When I send out a connection request to somebody on LinkedIn, I'm like, what you're doing is interesting. That looks very cool. I would like to do that too. So that's my idea of it. And as you said, it's a two-way street. So
Yeah.
providing your own input, offering help is a very important part of making a community. Uh, so yeah, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about loneliness, making a network, on being an entrepreneur, and the everything that comes with it. So
Mhm.
to finish, for me as quite a junior, quite new to the country and to the system, um, what advice would you give for new resident doctors at any stage in their career who want to start something of their own?
Excuse me. Well, I think you've got to come at it with a bit more of a strategic mindset. Um, so this just comes from my experience working one-on-one with doctors, where, for example, they will say, "Oh, I want to set up my virtual clinic, offering my services, whatever that specialty is, or whatever those interests are." And then I say to them, "Oh, what's your plan?" And like, "Oh, I don't know. I just want to set one up." So it's always the first thing is figuring out what it is that you want, how you can offer that to the world. So a lot of the times it's a continuation of the work as a doctor. So, I have, for example, clients who were former GPs and now offering coaching services, but you strip away the specifics, it's still the same service. They're helping people. It's just they're now doing it for themselves. So it's not coming up with something completely new. It's not coming up with this whole brand new concept most of the time. It's just like, how do I really get to the core essence of who I am, what I want to do, how I want to continue to help and take that into something that I build for myself. Excuse me. And then having a strategy to execute on that is key, because you need to know the steps. Sorry, excuse me.
Right. We're talking a lot.
I know. We need some more water. So having that strategy is kind of the next step, and that requires more just an overarching view of like how am I taking this first step, this idea, this want, this how I'm able to help people, and what does that look like on paper as a business? So is it one-to-one coaching? Is it a group coaching thing? Is it me creating a product? Is it me going into schools and doing workshops? Whatever it looks like, but it's figuring out how you kind of start to distribute that. And those are kind of the things that you need to start thinking about at the beginning. What I try to say to people is try not to do everything. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I need my business name, or I need my a logo done, or I need a website set up, or I need to take another course, or I need to take a certification to become X, Y, and Z." And what that often does is just delays the process even more. So it's you feel like there's been action taken, but actually you're just kind of, it's another form of procrastination. So sometimes there's that's a challenge that some people have to really work through as well. What else would I say? One of the things that's really kind of becoming more and more pushed, the narrative's being pushed, and I think I see the value in it, and I know just from experience, and maybe you can speak on this a little bit as well, is this idea of just building up a personal brand, building up your own, becoming that like key person of influence, that really that person who knows that particular topic, that particular niche, that particular group of people, and really building that up with platforms like LinkedIn. And what that will do is really start to help build, that authority, that trust, for people to get to know you, they get to like you. And at that point, you start to then attract the right people, the right clients, the right opportunities. So sometimes for doctors wanting to start something of their own, it might not necessarily always be, I'm going to start a business. It could be, I'm going to reposition myself and start putting myself in this position of building a personal brand around a topic or a theme or whatever, an interest that they have. And then figuring out later how that, if they do want to go down the entrepreneurship, how that folds in. But at the end of the day, if you start building a personal brand with the right intentions and around the right goals, that's kind of a net positive in whatever you do down in the future. So if you do set up a business or you decide not to, and I think we're seeing that more and more, for for everybody, across the business side of things, but specifically doctors. But I know that that's also kind of a challenge in itself, because it's, a whole new world, uh,
I think it,
compared
it
to
is particularly
medicine.
challenging, especially if you're not somebody who's quite the extrovert, if you're somebody
Yep.
who already struggles with, say, starting up a conversation, then
Mhm.
starting up a conversation on the internet is going to be even harder.
Yeah.
And I think with, as you said, making a personal brand, um, with great power comes great responsibility. So you are on the internet, and the internet is forever, and it can be a very toxic place. So I think being aware of that before you dive into anything, and making sure that your network is also positive, because
Yep.
there are niches on the internet which are quite toxic, very belittling, and they will try to tear you down. But having that sort of thick skin to navigate that, and then having a network to lean on for support and be like, hey guys, I've made this, and this is the response I got. What do you think? And having a neutral perspective on things, not just from your friends, because they're going to, friends and family, because they're going to be biased, but from an independent person being like, maybe you should rethink that. Just like, maybe like tone down. And I think that's important, even with just building your personal brand and having people to keep you humble. I think that's
Mm.
really important. But yeah, those were very good, very helpful tips. And so for those who are considering this journey
Mhm.
and who have started something of their own, how can they reach out, and what um
Mhm.
what would you prefer? How do they get in touch?
Yeah. So basically, LinkedIn is my main presence on there. It's where I do my networking. It's where I do a lot of community building on that front. So people can reach out to me via LinkedIn. Then there's the opportunity always to work with me on a one-to-one basis. So some people who have the time and capacity, and obviously the funds and stuff, are able to do that. And I have like a 3-month program where I basically help you get started and get you kind of heading off in the right direction with your business, and get you up and running and getting your first clients coming in. That's one thing. And then the other thing is to become part of the network, of course. So that, I can obviously share the link with you for the show notes, but the idea is that people can apply to join the network, and yeah, be amongst other doctorpreneurs. And we meet every month. We have calls, like I say, and um, we have a community group on WhatsApp, so there's always people chatting in there about whatever's coming up in their business. And then I have office hours as part of that as well. So if people do want a little bit of contact time with me during each of the months, I am available, because people always have things come up randomly, where they're like, oh, I just had a call with someone and I don't know how to think about it and I don't know what to prepare. Just jump on a call. So those are the two options. You can either work with me one on one or be part of the group. But my my whole thing is always, I want to help, doctors, especially, just because that's the world that I'm part of. As much as I can. So if anyone just wants to reach out and ask a question, feel free to do so in the DMs, or if they want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm always happy to help, because not everyone needs particular services of mine, but they may just have a particular question. So I'm always happy to answer and give a bit of feedback or
I
some
love
insight
that.
if I
I
can.
genuinely love that, because that's the mentality I have as well. So I will put down Richard's LinkedIn. I will put down some of the other resources. that you can use to, if you're
Hmm.
considering starting something up, and if you want to reach out to LinkedIn, to Richard on LinkedIn, everything will be in the description below.
So,
Yeah, and thank you for your time.
yes.
It was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and that was the reason why I wanted to get on call anyway. It was all for me.
Yeah.
But
That's
thank
all.
you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about your experience and your journey. I think, especially yourself with your own communities and stuff, I'm sure we can continue the conversation,
Hmm.
um, because it's an ongoing and evolving process
Yeah,
managing these
yeah,
kinds of things. But it's nice, I think, to come away from this knowing that there's more support out there and more groups out there and more people willing to help, because I think there's not enough and there can be more. So it's
yeah.
great to find more people who are out there supporting doctors.
Mhm.
So
Yay!
that's for us. That's
Yay!
for us.
Yay! Yay for us.
Uh,
Well, thank you. There will
cool.
be more podcasts coming. I'm gonna get very cool people on board to talk about their journey, and maybe Richard can come back on again and tell us about more of the things he's learned from working with with us weird doctors.
I'd be
Yeah,
I'd be happy to come back. Maybe I could talk specifically on a singular topic if
yeah,
the community wants
yeah.
something specific. I know today was more of an intro. And also the doctors in my network, I'm sure they'd love to come on and chat about their journeys.
Oh, I
It's
love it. I've got
interesting.
an in now. So yay. No, but thank you for your time. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.